Okay, hello YouTube. Today we're going to be going over a game that just happened in the USA Championship between Awonder Liang and Levon Aronian. And if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click on your notification icon. So the main thing I want to talk about when I go over this game is I really want to talk about like having tactics kind of on your radar. Because what really happened in this game is Levon Aronian, who's a very, very strong player, 2755, one of the top players in the world, certainly one of the best players of my generation. It seems like he kind of missed the tactical ideas that his opponent was throwing at him. Now, part of that is because Liang played a very kind of rare line. He played a Scotch Gambit, and then after bishop c5, the normal move here is something like c3. So it's very conceivable that Levon Aronian had a lot more preparation on the move c3 than the move that got played, which is just a very rare kind of move. This move knight g5, it's not played very often. It's a move that dates more back to kind of the 19th century. It's kind of a 19th century style kind of gambit. So we have this knight g5, and it's clear that Aronian had some preparation on this because it is a viable move. The move itself is fundamentally sound. So he continues with knight h6, and then we have all of these captures on the f7 square. And this is all, of course, everything that was on everybody's radar because it was part of the preparation. Queen h5 check, which of course hits the king on f7 and hits the bishop on c5, and then after g6, queen c5. So this is the exact type of gambit that's going to be very appealing to beginners and intermediate players, club players. You get your opponent to have kind of a very unsafe king for what seems like not a lot of risk for white, and in fact, I mean, that's kind of what's going on. I mean, the position is relatively close to equal, but black has kind of this permanent unsafe king. And because of this permanent unsafe king, certain types of ideas have to be on your radar. But if you're not familiar with these positions, or you don't play these positions very often, you might not have some of the tactical ideas that come up in this position on your radar 100% of the time. And that's kind of what happened in this game. Is black plays d5, so I'm assuming this is still part of Aronian's preparation, because d5 is the best move. And then we have pawn to c3, also probably part of prep. c3 is the best move here. We have d takes c4, castles kingside, probably still within everybody's preparation. That is the best move. And then we have rook e8. So here's where I start to wonder how much of this was in Aronian's preparation and how much of this is coming from vague memory. Because again, this is a super rare line. Like knight g5 is a lot more rare than c3, and he's probably not used to playing this type of stuff. But rook e8 is still a super reasonable move. We have c takes d4, and then we have queen to d4, and then queen g5. So already queen d4 is a little shady. Queen d4 is a little questionable, because after queen g5, this queen starts kind of threatening to get into these dark squares around the king, and this king is super loose, and there's a lot of air around this king. We need to start getting paranoid, and we need to start getting worried. But the paranoia flares hadn't quite gotten sent up yet for Levon Aronian, and he plays a super aggressive move that you have to be very careful about in positions like this. He plays this move knight b4. Now, this is where Liang starts thinking for a while, because of course knight b4 is just kind of a new move in the position. Nobody's ever really tried this before, and it just kind of ignores one of the major threats in the position, which is basically white just threatening to get to the dark squares. And Liang plays the correct move. He plays bishop d2. Now, bishop d2 is a super dangerous, scary-looking move. White is just threatening to get into these dark squares, all of these frightening and scary different ways. And it's a very dangerous situation. I mean, if just something normal like, say, bishop f5, we're going to be flying into the dark squares in a couple of moves, and this position is just going to be completely lost after queen h6. We're flying in with mate, or we're flying into h7. Either way, basically, black is just losing the game on the dark squares. So Levon, at this point, his radar's up, but it's probably too late. He brings his queen back to d6 to at least avoid bishop c3 with tempo. But Liang plays very accurately and very energetically. We have knight to c3, just threatening to come in with another piece. So we have c6, just trying to keep Liang out of squares like d5. c6 turns out to be kind of the right move. And then we have rook a d1, just doing everything with tempo, threatening bishop f4, threatening just all kinds of stuff, all kinds of discoveries. So we have bishop f5 and now g4, and this is very similar to the previous idea, where we're just really just trying to get this queen to h6 and just get to these dark squares around the king, and basically just come in with all of our guns blazing and just going after this black king who just doesn't have a lot of cover. So we have h6, queen h4. So the idea here is we don't necessarily want to take on h6 and allow bishop takes g4, where we're going to have a lot of weaknesses. We would rather just kind of move back, hang on to the pawn on g4, force the bishop to move, and then slam into the dark squares with all of our pieces, and basically cause serious problems to the black king. After bishop to c8, we have bishop h6, and white should just be completely winning in this position. This king just basically has no cover, and we just did that last move with tempo. We're hitting this queen. So now Aronian is just in desperation mode, just kind of trying to save. He plays knight to d3, and then we have bishop g5 threatening queen h7, and then we have queen e5, and then from here on out, we kind of have a series of moves that are really, really strong from white because all of these ideas are very much on white's radar. White, if you're playing this opening with white, you've clearly got it prepared. And another thing is when you prepare openings like this with white, you want to take a look at all of the tactical themes and things that might happen in the position, and you're going to be very familiar with how to attack a king when it's out in the open like this. So the moves for white, even though some of these moves look really cool and really sacrificial, they're easy to find if these moves are already kind of on your radar. So this next move, pawn to f3, white is just trying to crack open the position of the black king, crack open his rooks, and just get everything to that black king. So f3 isn't a terribly hard move to find. We have rook h8, f takes e4 check, and going after the king some more, king g8, bishop h6, covering the queen and also covering the dark squares. Queen d4 check, king h1, and then bishop to e6. Now here's where, white finishes things off really, really beautifully. He brings the queen in, which threatens mate, and then we have bishop f7. Now he's been pushing forward, forward, forward this whole time, going after the dark squares in front of the black king. So the rest of these moves, even though they look spectacular and they look sacrificial, are not hard to find because we just continue with that forward moving process, looking for ways to break through, looking for ways to find a way to get in. So of course rook f7, super, super logical. We're just trying to break down the defense of this g6 square. We're hoping for something like king g7 when we can bring in the rest of our pieces with tempo and with effect. So we have rook takes h6, just trying to get rid of some pieces that are on the dark squares. And then we have this amazing move, rook to d3. We have queen d3, and then we have queen f6 threatening queen g7, just coming into the dark squares again. Now, the amazing thing about this is in this position, you would expect that maybe black would have some sort of resource with perpetual check, like queen f1, queen something, but all of the squares are covered. f1 is covered, d1 is covered, b1 is covered. So Aronian sacrifices his rook in a desperate effort to get some sort of perpetual check, but the king actually walks towards the queen, which will allow the knight to block. If queen d2, the knight will simply block on e2, and then all the checking squares are going to be covered. That's usually the case when the king, knight, and queen are just one square apart like that. Normally, all the checking squares are covered. That's a very common tactical theme. So he had to bring the queen back to just defend against mate, and then after g5, he just resigns because he can't keep his queen defending the mate, and he also can't check white indefinitely and get a perpetual. So this was a good win for white. This was a good win for Wander Liang. And as for Levon Aronian, I think that he just kind of ran into a position that he just doesn't see very much. So a lot of these ideas and a lot of these tactics just weren't on his radar. And that's the reason why we have to study, and that's the reason why we have to prepare to get these tactical ideas on our radar. And this is something that can even happen to some of the best players in the world if they get stuck in positions that they're unfamiliar with. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you can use some of these ideas in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.